Hi, everybody. Welcome to Women in Retail Talks, the podcast where C-suite executive women in the retail space share their stories of professional growth, leadership development, personal journeys, and more. I'm Melissa Campanelli, the co-founder of Women in Retail Leadership Circle, a membership-based community of executive women at leading retailers and brands. And joining me today is Daniella Yacobovsky, the co-founder of BaubleBar, which is a fun accessories brand she founded with her friend Amy Jane in 2010. Their mission was to be an invaluable source of fashionable and affordable accessories and impeccable customer service. Since then, the company has grown exponentially, attracting investors like Excel and Greencroft Partners and becoming a multi-channel brand using real-time data to make design decisions. The brand can now be found in more than 8,500 retail stores globally. Today, we're going to talk about Daniella's career journey, her leadership tips, her thoughts on work-life integration, and so much more. So we're so thrilled to have you here today, Daniella. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Great. I'm just going to jump into some of these questions. So I read that you founded BaubleBar with your friend Amy, which I mentioned earlier. You were an investment banker with zero experience in the jewelry or fashion business at the time. So how did you come up with the idea, and what gave you the confidence to do it?
Sure. So Amy and I had actually met in investment banking, but we founded the idea while we were in business school together. And I think when we had both started business school, we both, really had the entrepreneurial bug. We knew that we wanted to do something. We didn't know quite what that was yet. One of the things that was so helpful about banking is I think it gave us a lot of insight into how businesses are built, how they're run and operated, how the numbers work and function. And we really wanted to figure out the rest. We really founded BaubleBar as two people who loved accessories and were pretty fanatic about the category, just as regular consumers. I been really fun about that approach is we really do approach everything we do as consumers and as two people who love to shop the category, to wear the category, and to participate in the category. I think that outsider perspective actually gave us a lot of opportunity to rethink how we wanted to do things and how we wanted to do things a little differently than how things had traditionally been done, which we really credit as being a large driver of where we are today.
Great. So can you tell us a bit about building the company? So many of our listeners are probably dreaming of doing something like this. So what were like a few of your key challenges, and how did you overcome them?
Sure. I think one of the really big challenges is you're going to hear no a lot. And I think that you do have to be prepared for that. You have to have thick skin. You have to have the ability to hear people disagree with your hypotheses, disagree with some of the things that you say you are going to build. And I think separate from having a thick skin, you need to have, I think, the ability to sort of filter and hear the feedback, process the advice that people have for you without letting it get you down or without letting it take a negative toll on your ability to push forward. I wouldn't say put blinders on and disregard some of the feedback people have for you, but have the ability to take in advice and have the ability to hear what can be hard feedback without letting it sort of dampen your spirit or dampen your desire to sort of push forward and build what it is that you want to build. I think also having the ability to sort of just emotionally move through starting something from scratch is something a lot of people don't talk about. Amy and I frequently joke that, especially in the early days, we always say that you would have a day where you got the best news you've ever gotten, and then 10 minutes later, you get the worst news you've ever gotten. I think that roller coaster of entrepreneurship is something that takes some time to get used to and takes some time to figure out how you personally are going to sort of weather those ups and downs. But it's really important to figure out how you would personally weather those ups and downs.
I think that's great advice for any business leader, actually. So speaking of, we're talking a little bit about starting the company still. What was the worst piece of advice you got and the best?
I would say that there was pretty bad advice sort of circling around. If you think about the time when we started our company, we were raising venture capital in what I would call the sort of early 2010s. We were really building the business in 2011, 2012, 2013. And those were years where I would say venture capital was really booming. Capital in general was more readily available, and people were raising rounds. I wouldn't say easily, but more easily than they are now. And one of the pieces of advice was to really spend money to grow. Throw money at it, throw money at marketing, throw money at growing, fake it till you make it, make your business really, really, really big. And I think that as a result of that, a lot of people unfortunately built foundations that unfortunately were just not scalable. You can't just throw money at a problem forever and hope that one day it will turn into a sustainable business. And I think that Amy and I, given our backgrounds in investment banking and private equity, fortunately kind of saw through that pretty quickly and said, look, we just don't see how this is going to be a sustainable business. We have to build something that is fundamentally profitable, that people fundamentally want, and a business where the margins make sense at scale, because it's much, much, much harder to sort of make a quick pivot with a 757 than it is with a teeny little boat, and so make as a dinghy and not as a giant 757. I think a lot of people unfortunately found themselves trying to make those pivots as a really large business that had scaled quite a lot. And that's quite difficult, to sort of retrain your customer and rethink how you fundamentally operate. And so we fortunately sort of corrected things much earlier to our progression. I think some of the really great advice we've gotten is to be slow to hire. I think that especially when you're growing at a really, really, really rapid clip, there is that sort of eagerness to bring people onto the team to help you scale and help you build and help you grow. And I think that while you can feel that excitement of growth and that desire to build the team you need, what you don't want to do is lose sight of your culture. And what you don't want to do, I think, at least for us, was really lose sight of building the right team and putting the right bodies in those seats. I think maintaining culture is such an important piece of growth and such a special part of being a small growing company, and really focusing on how you maintain that and how you grow that is something we always got a lot of really good advice about being mindful of.
That is great. Culture is such an important topic. We cover that a lot with our members and on our newsletter. And I think it's something that personally maybe is not the first thing on the minds of some entrepreneurs. So I think that's really great that you got that experience at the beginning. I mean, this sort of dovetails into the next question, which is, do you have any tips for some of our listeners out there who may be trying to start a company or getting some of the investors, interested in the company? I know it's different now than when you started, but any thoughts in there?
Yeah, I think one really big piece of advice, and this definitely builds on culture, is don't underestimate the importance of all of the people around you. Amy and I have always been extremely fortunate in that we have had each other. I think being able to successfully build, when I say successfully, I don't even so much mean the business as I do our relationship. Amy and I were best friends going into building the business. And one of our, I think, proudest accomplishments is that over a decade later, we still are. I think that's extremely rare. I think that a lot of people, when they're building a business, and that, that comes with challenges, difficult situations, conflicts, lose sight of the importance of people. Amy and I think, would both tell you that one of the reasons we're where we are is our relationship with each other, our ability to lean on each other, our ability to bounce ideas off of each other, challenge each other, disagree with each other, and come back to the table with a better idea and a healthier relationship. Relationships with people, I think, is one of the things that makes great companies great. For us, it's not just our relationship with each other, but it's also our incredible team that has been by our side helping us build our company. I think that when that is something that you can't maintain, rebuilding that can be so damaging to a business. And maintaining that culture and being thoughtful about your team, making your team feel empowered, rewarded, wanting to be by your side is so important. As you continue to grow, that means not only not having to hire and retrain people because turnover is just so difficult to move past. But it's some of the little things too. I think, having folks, and we have some folks who have been on our team for an exceptionally long time. Our first hire ever is still with us. It's some of the little things. It's the little endemic pieces of the business that they know and that they carry forward with them, and that you don't have to retrain. I think those are so important towards building a business. I think in terms of fundraising, it's always changing. It's, obviously the landscape and the macro environment is always evolving. But I think really, really having an understanding for who your audience is and how you can communicate the value of what you are building for your audience, how you communicate that and put that into words or experiences for the person that you're potentially painting that picture for. I think that's really critical. When we were raising our initial round of funding, one of the things we noticed is, and we sell jewelry and accessories, and so our customer is predominantly female. Most of the people that we were raising funds from were male, and we were getting a lot of pretty common questions in terms of asking us how a woman shops for jewelry, how a woman shops for fashion jewelry. And we found that we were getting a lot of those questions over and over and over again. And one of the things that Amy and I noticed as we did a couple of fundraising meetings is that most of the meetings we were going to, the person behind the closed door, was a man. But there were a lot of women in the office, in a variety of roles, a lot of whom had helped us set up the meeting or helped us organize the meeting. And so we started sending out thank you care packages to the women in the office, to just say, thank you for the help. Thank you for getting this set up. And what that allowed us to do was, when we came into the meetings, we allowed the person who was then doing the meeting with us to watch people have the BaubleBar experience. People were then, in the lead up to the meeting, opening our packages, talking about the product, talking about their excitement with the product together. And the person who was then doing the meeting with us got to see how an actual customer responded to the product in person. And I think that experience was really invaluable. The irony, of course, is we ended up taking our initial seed funding from a female investor who knew how women were interacting with the product from her own personal experience, which ultimately was extremely helpful. But I think that was a really important for us to figure out, how do we want to workshop this, and how do we want to get past some of these questions that we keep getting over and over again that feel very basic to us as people who shop the category, but maybe don't feel as obvious to people who aren't shopping the category for themselves.
Oh, I love that so much. My head is shaking up and down. Too bad you can't see. I mean, that is such a great idea. It's so inventive. It's so you have to be creative, if you're trying to
Yeah.
get something off of getting something going, and you found a creative way to do it. That's great. Moving forward, we were talking a lot about your company and how you got started, but let's talk about what you're working on now. So what are some of the initiatives that you're working on that you're most excited about?
Sure. When we started, like many other companies, you're resource constrained. You're constrained in terms of the number of people on your team and how quickly you can scale. You also want to scale thoughtfully. You just don't want to do a million things at once. And so when we first started, we were really focused on building a brand at first centered around fashion jewelry direct to consumer. I think since then we've grown so much, largely thanks to category expansion, distribution expansion, and some of our licensing partnerships. I think those have all been really exciting. And if you look at the brand now, we sell a really exciting range of products, everything from fashion jewelry to fine jewelry, blankets, Christmas ornaments, home decor, phone cases. We have a really large business in custom made to order product, where you get to really customize all of the elements of the item that you're ordering. We have a really successful kids line, which has been a really fun expansion. We sell through a range of retailers that we love working with and really respect. And it's so exciting to kind of look back and see the brand at retailers that we grew up shopping and loving, folks like Nordstrom, Bloomingdale's, Target, And then through some of our licensing partnerships, we're also in folks like Disney and Fanatics. We work with Disney, the NFL, the MLB, the NBA. And so for us, what's been really exciting and continues to be exciting is seeing the permission that our community is giving us in terms of all the places we can go. We really say that we like to embellish every day, and we take a really optimistic and joyful view to our product. And I think as a result of that, we've gotten a lot of permission from our community to really go there, and to really do some stuff that's fun and out of the box and makes you smile. And that's something that is just it's fun. I don't have another word for it. I don't think there are a lot of other companies out there that are doing some of the things that we're doing. I mean, we make charcuterie board earrings, and the range of product that you find on our site that really allow people to come on the site and have fun, and maybe you don't want to wear charcuterie board as a pair of earrings, but we also have the bottle opener. And I think for some people, that's a fun way to sort of participate in that. Maybe they want a classic pair of gold hoops, and we have those too. But for us, I think that's really been the fun part, is continuing to innovate, continuing to come up with things that people look at and make them smile and make them gasp and make them want to talk about with their friends and talk about with us on social media. That's really been the most fun thing.
That's great. I love that. I actually have some BaubleBar jewelry. I have, it's like a over exaggerated like bubble necklace, and I just love it. I wear it with like something plain, and it's just so fun. So I know exactly what you mean.
Exactly what you're talking about. That's a wonderful style.
Yeah. So you have so much experience at this company. I'm sure you've led a lot of teams, you mentioned that you've had so many employees, a lot of them are still there. So what are some three top leadership lessons you can share with our audience?
Yeah. I think one is to being really clear in your communication and being honest and transparent in your communication. I think that sometimes, and I know for me, this was a mistake. I think, I sometimes made in the early days. The desire to not want to hurt someone's feelings is sometimes we can not be thoughtful and transparent in our communication, which I think ultimately has the opposite impact, which is you don't share what can be harder feedback to share. And obviously, it should go without saying, but I don't think it should, is you want to be thoughtful and conscientious of how you deliver what can be constructive feedback. Of course, we want to be thoughtful in our delivery, but don't shy away from giving constructive feedback. I think it's important for people to hear it, to grow, to get better, to understand what the organization's and your expectations are as a leader. I think one of the second things is to never, ever, ever forget that importance of culture. Make sure that you're fostering it. Make sure that you are being mindful of it. Be really thoughtful about feedback you get from folks on your team when people have feedback about something that is harming culture or hurting culture, and being really, really, really on top of maintaining it and building it. And then I think really thinking about how you find and model work-life balance, which can be really tough, and which I think can be especially tough once you introduce things like children and family. And I think especially as a working mom, finding those opportunities to take time for yourself. I think that especially as a working mom, it can be really easy to fall into the trap of trying to do everything at all times, and then you end up running on fumes, and then you lose sight of the bigger picture. And so how do you find those moments for yourself, and how do you find those moments to take a pause so that you can be your best self? That can be extremely hard. I say it now verbally, and I feel like everybody else am trying to figure it out. I don't think that there's a silver bullet, and I don't think that there's an answer. But I know that for myself, when I do find those moments to prioritize taking a pause, I'm better. I'm clearer. I'm well rested. I think better. I have more patience, and I take a better approach to not just my work life, but my personal life. And so I say it knowing that it is one of the most impossible things there is to do.
I love that so much. And that actually leads into my next question, which is work-life integration. We don't call it work-life balance here. We call it work-life integration. So what are some tips you have around that? Obviously, you said that you try to take time, for yourself to get a good night's sleep, et cetera. But anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, I think there one of the really good things, or one of the really important things, again, is just being transparent and clear. That is something we really try to do as an organization, where we are really transparent with what are some of those elements of our personal life we try to maintain. Everyone that I work with really knows in my schedule what are the hours that I'm with my children, and that it's important for me to be with my children when I have an important appointment that I really personally want to take them to and be present for. Those are things that I'm really transparent about with my team. Hey guys, I've got XYZ for my son Marcus, and I'm going to be doing that today between these hours. And so folks know, hey, not only is Daniella, not available, but let me try to not ping her during that time so that she can have that space. And I would say the door swings both ways. My team is also really transparent with me about, hey, I've got XYZ coming up. Hey, I really want to do this. I've had folks on my team come to me with, really sensitive conversations around family planning, around some of the things that they're trying to do in their personal lives, so that we can really create that space for them so that they can go and do it and not feel that pressure of work. I think that sometimes people can feel a little nervous to talk about that with a boss or with folks at work. And I would say that transparency makes it easier for your colleagues to show up for you.
Yeah, that is so true. Transparency, empathy, all of that good stuff. So in closing, it's still, even though it seems like the year is going by quickly, it's still sort of the new year. So can you talk about a few goals that you might have for yourself personally and professionally as we get into 2024?
Sure. I think for me, one of my big goals is always being more present. I think that that goes hand in hand with work-life integration. Is how do I personally do a better job balancing? How do I do a better job creating space for some of the things that are important for me professionally and personally, and really giving them the headspace and time that they deserve? I think that's really a big one for me this year.
Thank you so much, Daniela. That was a great discussion. It was so nice to meet you, and good luck with everything in 2024 for you and BaubleBar.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening. For more information on this podcast, please go to womeninretail.com/podcasts for show notes. Women in Retail Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. Make sure to subscribe on our podcast channel page as well. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a few moments to rate and review our show. Lastly, if you're a female retail leader interested in joining our community at Women in Retail Leadership Circle, visit womeninretail.com/apply. Thanks, and until next time, this has been Women in Retail Talks.